Hello everybody and welcome to parksbros. It's Drew here, and today we're going to be giving our full in-depth review on the RMC masterpiece, Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. Outlaw Run was created by Rocky Mountain Construction and opened on March 15th, 2013 at Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. This topper track RMC coaster is technically a wooden coaster, but provides a much smoother experience. Throughout its course, it will start with a 107-foot tall lift hill with a 162-foot drop at 81 degrees. This, of course, will get you to a top speed of 68 miles an hour throughout its 2,937 feet of track. In addition to this, though, it does feature 3 inversions, including a 153-degree outward banked inversion, and to finish it all off, a double heartline roll. It features a full duration of 1 minute and 27 seconds, and from the top of the lift hill toward the brake run, it's around 45 seconds altogether. With all the stats out of the way, let's try and figure out how to get there. Outlaw Run is at the very back of Silver Dollar City, and I'm not making that up. It is pretty easily the most confusing ride to try and get to, as it's kind of on its own. You'll be able to see it from plenty of places in the park, but trying to get there is a different story. Once you enter through the park's main gift shop, you'll want to keep walking down Main Street and take Hugo's Hill Street for the quickest route there. Follow Hugo's Hill Street all the way down, and I mean all the way down, where you'll end up passing the entrance for Wildfire. From this point, you're going to turn right, cross underneath the train tracks, walk by River Blast, keep walking forward until you see a pathway just on the left-hand side of Mystic River Falls. You're going to take that pathway all the way past the giant barn swing, and Outlaw Run will be another couple hundred of feet past even that, and it's pretty easy to spot that massive lift hill. And I gotta say, it is such a beautiful reveal, although it is quite confusing to try and get there. From this point on, you'll enter into the queue, see some really fantastic theming, making you feel like you're ready to hop on a stagecoach to travel somewhere you've never been, before entering into a little covered switchback area, which is not very big at all. Immediately following this, you'll head into the covered and really beautifully designed station, which is just full of woodwork and feels directly out of the 1880s. It is beautiful, and you should be on it before you know it. Speaking of which, you'll sit down into your seat, and if you've been on other RMC coasters such as Twisted Colossus or Steel Vengeance, maybe even Twisted Cyclone, these are very similar, although this ride features the first RMC made trains on their product. So it's a tad bit different. These seats fully encompass you on all sides and can be quite snug, especially if you have broader shoulders. Do be warned as well that this seatbelt is a lot less forgiving than the other seatbelts on many of the other RMC coasters out there. So while you might be fine riding most other RMCs, Outlaw Run I've seen give quite a few people trouble, at least with the seatbelt alone. Once you buckle that all up, then you can pull down the restraint, which is a lap bar / shin guard, which can be quite tight for a lot of people, but for me it fits perfectly, and half the ride it doesn't even feel like it's there. It's phenomenal. With that all said though, it's just about time you hear the roaring of the horses and go catch yourself some bad guys. Starting this ride, you'll immediately take a right-hand drop that's only a couple feet tall as you duck underneath the exit queue. This will bring you directly into that lift hill, and I can't believe, honestly, that it's only 107 feet tall. It makes no sense. If you were to ask me to figure out how tall this ride is, I would guess at least 160 or 180 feet. Because of its placement on the side of a mountain in the Ozarks, it just seems so much bigger, especially with the descending hill in front of you. Once you'll get up to the top of that lift hill, you'll take a quick dip down with one of the most gorgeous views on any ride out there, just looking out into the vast wilderness, before turning just to the left and popping back up to nearly the same height, but this time with some speed. Entering this first drop is just fantastic, especially with how big it is. It being 167 feet tall makes an incredible difference for me, as especially towards the back, you just get whipped over it. It being nearly vertical as well is just a fantastic touch, and while I know in the POVs it doesn't look too tall, it definitely feels much bigger. Even in the front you'll get some amazing airtime, but in the back you really just get thrown. It's amazing. As you finally end up valleying out of that first drop, do know there is a tiny bit of a pothole right there where you kind of just feel this kerchunk, and it's probably the roughest moment on the entire ride. But as you start to turn and twist upward to the left, I do want to mention, because of this topper track system, although it is incredibly smooth, it still is a tiny bit bouncy around the edges, making it feel like an all-out wooden coaster and adding a little bit of an unpredictable intensity in there that I just adore. Where were we? Oh, right. Going up into that first inversion, this outward bank turn is just insane. As you enter this element, twisting to the left and then twist all the way in total to a 153-degree stall toward the right. It's like a Stangle dive on steroids. I absolutely love this element, especially if you're in the left-hand side. From this point, you'll twist left all the way back in an overbank turn, in one of the more whippy moments of the ride, as it just flails you to the side, unlike the beginning of that element. This leads you directly into the woods. You'll get your first real encounter of being completely surrounded by trees as you enter one of the most powerful airtime moments out there in this off-axis airtime hill. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't look like much, but I can tell you it is easily one of the most intense ejector airtime moments I have ever personally experienced, where you just feel weightless to the max. Adding in that tree line just makes it all the more intense, as you'll soon find yourself parallel with that first drop. This leads you into another fantastic moment of airtime that again ejects you right up into that restraint, and even more so towards the front. As you quickly dip down again, the picture will be on the left-hand side, so make sure to pose for that camera, whether it be crying, screaming, or just laughing, as you'll then twist upward and toward the left, just barely underneath the lift hill. This moment is such a cool element of this ride, as it's a non-traditional airtime hill that gives you fantastic hand choppers with the lift hill just completely encompassing you. Now, if you're on the right-hand side, you'll get a phenomenal moment of, again, ejector airtime as it quickly whips you to the right. This is something that the ride does a lot and very well. There's tons of lateral forces pushing you side to side and more airtime than you can even think, just pushing you out of your seat. This always stood out to me just as much as that off-axis airtime hill though, as it's just unexpectedly powerful. Then you'll do a little curve to the left before twisting back right into a wave turn. If you don't know what a wave turn is, it's realistically a full airtime hill, but twisted 90 plus degrees to either side. In this case, it's to the right, and you'll get a great moment of floater airtime, truly making it feel like you're completely weightless. This is a cool moment for me, but not nearly as powerful as the other airtime on this ride. You'll then get some positive G's and even more tree cover, which just makes you feel like you've gone out into the middle of nowhere, as that's all you can see, as you pop up into another phenomenal moment of ejector airtime. This will then curve you toward the right, and then you're reaching the finale. I know, already? I can't believe it. But this finale is unbelievable, especially for something that's classified as a wooden coaster. This double heartline roll transitions you perfectly from that little curve into the final brake run, as you'll get some amazing, and I mean amazing, lateral forces, as well as even some hang time slowly creeping you out of your seat while you're upside down. The hang time is definitely more prominent towards the front, whereas in the back, those side-to-side lateral forces definitely come at you with a little bit more power. And I gotta say, this is easily the most disorienting disorienting part of the ride because you go from the complete wilderness to going upside down twice, and then boom, you're back in Silver Dollar City as you perfectly transition into that final brake run. You'll do a little twist to the right to line up perfectly with the station again, grab your belongings from the free bins on the right-hand side of the station, and walk your way over that lift hill yet again toward the gift shop. And then boom, your ride on Outlaw Run is all finished. Are you riding again, just like I would? It's time for my full thoughts and ratings on Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City. I think it's pretty obvious. I like this thing. I like it a lot. And while I kind of got through everything really quickly, it's just because this ride is very quick. Not just in pure speed, but in terms of duration. For me, this ride doesn't really have too much of a breathing space outside of possibly the wave turn, but it makes me love it so much more. That 35 to 45 seconds is just jam-packed with some fantastic moments, as well as being underneath that tree line is just beautiful. And every ride I had on this coaster just worked for me. From the first even up to my 15th, I felt exactly the same almost every single ride. I absolutely loved it. The rapid pacing of the elements, that wooden coaster feel with a lack of true wooden coaster elements. This ride surprised me in way more ways than I could have ever expected. I really do love everything on this ride, from the beautiful view at the start, that drop, the 3 inversions are all brilliant, and all that airtime to fill in the gaps. RMC really did their work on their first topper track coaster, and boy am I glad I was able to go out there in 2021, and hopefully I'll make it back way sooner rather than later. I will say, I know there are quite a few people complaining about some of the roughness on this ride. I will definitely acknowledge that towards the middle on some of our rides, it was definitely a little rougher, so it made it a little harder to re-ride. But thankfully, for every day of our trip, the longest wait we had was 5 minutes. And that was even with 1 train operations. For some reason, whether it be where the ride is located or it being too intense possibly for a lot of the park's clientele, or heck, maybe even the high throughput of the ride, there never seems to be more than a 10, maybe even 15-minute wait on even a busier day, at least from what I've experienced. So you can bet whenever we rode it, we definitely rode it 3, 4, maybe even 7 or 8 times in a row. But if we did end up riding towards the middle, we would occasionally get some light headaches just because some of those rough patches were a little more pronounced toward the middle of the train. And by some of those rough patches, I really mean that one pothole at the bottom of the drop. Now, I will admit I have not gotten a night ride on this ride yet, but I cannot wait for the day, as I know many night rides end up vaulting the coaster's status higher and higher, and if that happens, I can only imagine where it would end up in my top 25. With that all said though, let's figure out my favorites and least favorites. Now, in terms of where to sit, I gotta be honest, I absolutely loved the front row. Usually on RMC coasters, I'm definitely saying go the back all day, but in the front, with how the elements hit, it almost felt more intense up there, especially with that wind directly in your face. Don't get me wrong, that drop in the back, and especially that one twisting drop underneath the lift hill in the back, are just insane. But every other element hit way harder in the front, especially that first inversion. Some of those laterals, unlike any other ride I've been on, and almost comparable to the Stangle dives on Maverick, and those are pretty freaking intense. Don't get me wrong, I loved the back row as well, but I gotta be honest, the front row wins my favorite seat. Now, in terms of least favorite seat though, I'm gonna have to say row 8 or 7, I forget which was the roughest. It may have even been 6, but those rows included my least favorite rides, although I was still having an absolutely amazing time regardless. Now, my least favorite element, I gotta be honest, is probably that wave turn, which kind of bums me out a little bit. Then again, it's a perfect breather between some more airtime and of course that hang time in the finale. Part of me just wishes it was maybe a little bit more pronounced. When it comes to my favorite element though, oh, it gets so tough. I love that double heartline roll finale, and that first drop in the back is spectacular. But I think I gotta be honest, that combo of the off-axis airtime hill into another airtime hill probably probably takes the cake for my favorite individual elements on the ride. They're elongated, they're really forceful, and that changing direction just makes it stand out above the rest of the ride for me, at least in every row. Well, now it's time to get rating, and if you haven't seen one of these full in-depth reviews in the past, I definitely have an unorthodox rating system. First, I'll recommend how experienced of a coaster rider you should be before taking on Outlaw Run. Then I'll give a 5-star rating for intensity and fun, and of course, to wrap things up, I'll give my personal rating out of 10. Starting things off, this is easily a black diamond. You should be an experienced rider before checking this ride out, and I'd even push it up to possibly double black diamond on certain rides. It is a very intense wooden coaster, especially being at Silver Dollar City. It is easily the most intense ride at the park, at least in my opinion. So I would make sure to check out everything else before hitting up Outlaw Run at the back of the park if you're newer to rides. And for intensity, I'm gonna have to give this thing a 4-star rating, but man, I can imagine at night bumping that up another star. Fun, this is easily a 5 out of 5-star rating. It is just so fun. All the elements are incredibly enjoyable and relatively unique. And out of 10, this is an easy 10. As Outlaw Run, at least personally, is probably my favorite coaster of all time. I don't necessarily think it's the best, but there's something about it that only a couple of rides have done to me, where I just wish I could ride it every single day. With that all said though, I would love to know your guys' thoughts on Outlaw Run. Do you love it? Do you not like it? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, while you're down there, make sure to check out the description, as we're currently doing a poll to rank every single ride at Silver Dollar City, and we need your help. So make sure to go check it out in the description below. And before we end things, I wanted to say thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really do appreciate it. And make sure to stay tuned for more reviews in the future, as we're going to Kings Island as our next set of coaster reviews, so you won't want to miss out on that. But of course, until next time, we'll see you on the next ride.